Hello friends, and once again welcome to bispsolutions.com. My name is Amit. Today I'm going to show you another interesting example of calculating employee payroll. And in this example I'll be using planning functions, uh, and by using planning function we are going to use user variable. Let's see the requirement and then we're going to write a code. In my requirement is fairly straightforward. I would like to calculate payroll taxes which is based on salary, and the payroll tax percentage is user prompt. So I input value over here, payroll amount. I submit this, and when I invoke the business rule, you can associate business rule, on save event as well in a data form. But here I want to run the business rule explicitly. When I run the business rule, the rule name is called payroll taxes. And in next example, I'm going to show you how to create our own rule. So the payroll taxes. So there are two arguments. You see, it's a user prompt. It means my code is dynamic. I like the whole code to be executed for forecast, scenario, and working version, or whatever version you like to input. In the test sheet, I prepare an acquisition, and then you prepare a user enter payroll tax percentage. This is user variable value, right? Let me input 20% over here. So 20% of 10,000 would be 2,000. Click on launch. So my payroll taxes will be 2,000. Let's check. It is 2,000, right? Now let's see how to do this. So let's get started. I'm going to create a simple rule where I'm going to use user variable. Same way uh, you can use a navigation UI interface, or you can use a scripting interface. I personally prefer a scripting interface. The people who are new to business rule writing, they should use navigation interface. I'll be using combination of both of them. So let's create a new rule. I name this rule as calc payroll taxes, and then payroll taxes. I want the whole calculation to be done for a specific scenario inversion. Drag and drop. Right now, I would be using a variable over here called payroll tax percentage. Right. So I should have shown you this thing first. I'm going to create a user variable. So under tools, there's an option called variable. Two kind of variable I'm going to use over here: user variable, and I can use a substitution variable. So user variable, you see the list of variables are defined. I'll be using this variable entity view. So let me make a note of it. Name of my user variable, call entity view. And what's the value of it? Let's see. The value of this variable is we define in user preferences. Right now the value of this variable is defined as international sales. I kept the same value what I use in my test sheet, international sales. You can take it from here or you can see it. The value of my variable is entity view is international sales. It means my code would run execute only for this international sales, right? So there's one user variable I'm going to read it into my system, and in addition to this I use couple of uh, user prompts so that my code become dynamic, right? It means when you execute this, it will ask you for what scenario version you would like to run this code. So I use member range, which is actually fixed expression for which account you like to run, which entity, which period, you can define it over here. So I limit this whole calculation for base data, HSPO, and probably you can use a variable for current year. What's the year I've chosen? FY22 as a current year, FY22. In addition to this, you can define scenario. I'm going to use scenario as a predefined the variable which I created few minutes before, right? A global variable, isn't it? Scenario one, right? If you like to see how the variable is created, you can actually go under action, variable, sorry, variable designer. Under system action, go to variable designer, and I already created two variables. They are of global type. Go over here, global. Look at this variable I created. This variable is a dimension member type, and the default value I kept as a forecast, the dimension member. So this variable I'm going to use in my code. Right, let me make a note of this. So I've got one user variable and user prompt. Call scenario one. What is the value of it? Default value is forecast, which you can change on the fly. And I also be using a variable called version, and the value of this version variable is, this is also dimension member type, or dimension type as version, and the value is acquisition. Well, the value could be anything. So variable version, uh, version type, user prompt, scenario, this is a version type, and the value of this is acquisition. You can override a default value, although, right? Now let's write our code dynamic by using those expressions and user prompts. In the if expression, I use base data FY22. Scenario, I use variable over here. There's an option called variable. Select your variable, the one we have chosen. This is a global variable. Name of my variable is scenario1. The default value is forecast, isn't it? And I'm going to use this variable for version. So if you can filter it out, limiting your whole calculation for a certain subset of the queue, you always achieve a better performance, right? And the version. What is the name of my variable? Var version. Var version, right? This is correct. Perfectly fine. Okay, and I save it. Now I want the whole calculation to be done only for user-defined variable called entity view, right? User-defined variable called entity view. So how to use a user variable here? Let's apply one more range expression, right? So when you apply range expression, you get an option to select multiple filter condition, isn't it? I like to apply this filter condition for entity. Now user substitute, user variable, you cannot see it over here. When you click on variable, there is no option called user variable. You manually write an expression for this, isn't it? To write an expression, let me save it once before I proceed further. I'm going to edit the script under the script tag. Go over here, switch to script, edit a script window, right? Edit scripts. I'm going to apply fix expression. This is my fix and fix. Okay. Now what is this fix expression? I like to use a user variable. In order to use a variable, we use a function of planning functions dot get user well, right? This is what you write, get user well, and where value, where value. Okay. So this is my expression. So now here you can pass an argument, planning dot get user where value. The name of my user variable is here it is. Oh, sorry, here is my user variable value. Call entity view, isn't it? And the value of this variable is international sales right now. I got extra. Let me close this. So I put it over here. The entire code will run only for this entity, isn't it? Now you write your expression. What do you want to calculate? Well, I like to calculate payroll taxes, which is 6110 is the name of my account. Payroll tax is to be calculated. That's gonna be right side expression. Because it has a space, then I put in double quotes, equals to payroll tax is equal to basic salary multiplied by payroll tax percentage. So payroll tax percentage multiply by, this is my user prompt. I supposed to create one more variable where I can input payroll tax percentage, right? So let's create one more prompt variable. I think I already did it once. Payroll tax percentage. Let me delete and recreate. Okay, this is of percent type. Delete, and I'm going to recreate. Action variable. This is a percentage type. So I would var payroll tax percentage. Right. I give a type as a percentage, and you can define the value over here. Default value, I say 10%. You can define a prompt. The prompt is please enter uh, payroll tax percentage, right? Click on save button. I'm going to use this variable. Let me just make a copy of this variable to be referred. Okay, and you use prompt variable under curly braces, isn't it? So let's use this variable into my expression. You can drag and drop formula or you can write it manually, anyway works, right? So under curly braces, you can enter the name of the variable. It could have done through a UI as well. You can drag and add formula and do that. This is perfect. Let's save and validate this. Save and validate. So object type, payroll text percentage. Oh, it's a double quote. It's supposed to be there a space. I'm supposed to put in a string expression, double quotes. Okay. Once again, save and validate. I still have an error. Parsing formula, the line invalid object type, payroll text percentage. Let's see this. What's an error? Ah, so I like to use this not only for this, but the member of these. So rather than using an exact expression, I would prefer to use an expression at the rate relative. Okay. So let's extract multiple member at the rate relative function. And I want to use this level 0 member of it. Right. So you can apply relative function over here. And this way you enforce, you're going to use only level 0 member. So once this expression is ready, we should test it now. This expression is going to return member. Let's make sure our parentheses are balanced. This parenthesis, this is opening, this is a closing. Yeah, that's fine. It uses a double square braces. I use under parenthesis. That was a syntax error. I corrected this, and now we test it. Okay, so it says invalid expression. Oh, my parentheses are not balanced. Okay. There's a problem. We need to balance our parentheses. Yes, right. Now let's validate. Unexpected end of line. Yes, use semicolon. The code ran without any error. Right. These errors, typo errors always come, so don't scare by this. Now we are going to deploy this code and test it. Okay. I deploy this code. Make sure my point of views are exactly correct. You can check the runtime prompt of view under script. Right. So you can look at the script and make sure your point of views are exactly correct. So I'm going to apply this on base data FY22 forecast acquisition. Let's check our Excel sheet. FY22. I put them together so that you can compare. FY22 right, base data right, forecast and acquisition right. The second is the children of 410, so which is actually international sales. 410 is the international sales, right? So you can vote. You have two ways. You can look at a remove an alias. This is 410, isn't it? So I use the same expression, children level 0 member 410. Well, this is bottommost member, so it basically makes no sense. Had it been a parent member, then it makes sense to use a level 0 member. But I design in such a way that in future, if you select a parent member, the code still run, right? I put a 0 value over a hash missing, right? And I'm going to calculate it once again. This is your code. It is deployed with no error, and we'll run it through, right? Okay, let me put some number here. I'm going to put number called 10,000. Some easy number to calculate. When I run this code, you can run it code from here. You can run it code from here. You can associate this code in a data form as action menu. That way also it works. So I'm going to limit this plant type 1 with payroll, calculate payroll text, calc payroll text. Start with calc payroll text. cal payroll taxes. You want to keep this as the same argument. Scenario is forecast, version is acquisition, and the percentage I make it 12%. Let's see what's the difference. I launch it. This is the code, right? Now you see this carefully. In this, there are three arguments. Right? Three arguments. I want to see them together. Okay, I want to see them together. There are three arguments, so probably my screen is not big enough. Anyway, so the first is scenario, forecast. The interface got distorted. Well, what I would like to show you over here in my condition, the whole calculation will take place for forecast, acquisition version, and your payroll tax percent 12%. Right? This is done. Let's refresh it. It is 12%, working correctly. Right? So this is your output, and I put the code over here next to that. This is your output, and look at your code expression. This is my code expression. Right, correct, and all these are variable expressions. So you are into script mode, you can go back to designer mode, and there you see your designer mode. There's a formula. Anyway, you can see that, and you see I use a variable expression here. This is not constant, as a variable expression for first if condition. That too you can put it over here, so you get a 360-degree view. So here it is. This is variable expression, right? There's outer if condition. Okay, with base data scenario version period. This is my fixed expression, which is render on the fly based on the value of your scenario in working version and version dimension. Right. So that's it for today. It's a fairly simple example. You know, and this example demonstrates how to use functions, planning functions, which I use over here. Right. Planning functions dot get user preference variable value. 1 second, it will render now. Right, we use a function planning function dot get user variable value, isn't it? So this is your code before compile and after compile. Right, so that's it for today. Should you have any more question, please feel free to write to bispsolutions.com. Thank you very much.